Part 2. Near the end of the Carboniferous, the climate turned drier and cooler, favoring the evolution of gymnosperms, which can complete their life cycles on dry land. That was their secret. Withstand long, harsh winters. The descendants include the conifers or the cone-bearing plants. Covered much of northern Eurasia and North America. Usually evergreens, which retain their leaves throughout the year, include the tallest, the largest, the oldest organisms on Earth. Conifers and most other gymnosperms have 3 additional terrestrial adaptations that make their survival possible. Further reduction of the gametophyte, pollen, and seeds. Pollen, we know about that. Seed plants have greater development of the diploid sporophyte compared to the haploid gametophyte generation. Here was the mosses, and here was the fern, and now here is the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. The gametophyte is retained in an area. Pine trees and other conifers are actually sporophytes with tiny gametophytes living in the cones. Ovule-producing cones, that's the gametophyte, the female gametophyte. There are differences too here. The others, there were no male or female. And pollen-producing cones. This is the thing that turns your car yellow in January. The second adaptation of seed plants to dry land came with the evolution of pollen, which is a much reduced male gametophyte, houses cells that will develop into the sperm and don't need water. The third, of course, was the development of seed, the plant embryo, and the food package together with a protective coat. That was the big one. Seeds developed from structures called ovules located in the scales of female cones. They can remain dormant for long periods of time and germinate maybe a year, 2 years, 10 years later. Female cone cross-section on the cone. On each of the pieces of cone you have where the ovule is. It's open to the outside if you open up the cone, so that's why they're called naked seeds. Here's where the seeds are. All in here. Oh, touchscreen, forgot. Okay. Some of the gymnosperm diversity: the Pacific yew, the juniper, the Douglas firs, the Wilhelmina pines, the sequoia trees, the bristlecone pines. These are cycads, or we call them sagos here. There's a number of species of sagos, cycads. I think there's about 100 around the world. 28 were found in South Africa. This picture was taken in South Africa. This guy had a whole yard full of them. They're not there anymore, but they were full of them. And these trees take a really long time to grow, but they're in no hurry. They were also around at the time the dinosaurs used to eat their leaves, so they've been around for a really long time. That was me in 1983, I believe. A friend of mine took this, and I found it on a University of Michigan botany webpage, so I stole it back. And this is at Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden in Cape Town. These are a little glen here where it just goes around a pond, and all the cycads are all planted all around there. This particular cycad, which was in the middle of the pile here, that's why I took the picture, you can see the green fence, is a special one to me. That should be a special one to everybody in the world. This Encephalartis woodi has got a distinction that it's extinct. Okay, it's there. This one's even got cones. Shame, poor thing. But it's extinct. There are no females. These have male or female cones. There are no females. This thing was found in the 1800s by a guy named Dr. Medley. Dr. Medley Wood, and he took it in, dug it out, took it to the botanical gardens there, and just like all other sagos, they shoot up shoots off the bottom. But that's asexual reproduction. You're not getting any new guys from it. You're not getting any reproduction there going. But they do have a lot of these all around the world. They're a botanical garden or a rich person's yard prize because it's an extinct plant. It can't reproduce sexually. There was only one species found, which is probably the reason. Or one plant found that was a male. They're trying to back cross, but you know, maybe that'll work. But it takes a long time before they start to get cones. This is a cardboard palm with Epcot monorail beam behind it. The king sagos that we get here, that's a male sago. Unless you're trying to breed your sagos, break that off as soon as it forms. You don't need it on there, it's just going to sit there and make a mess all summer. Break it off, new leaves will form. Here's the female cones, and these are the seeds that they actually form. So when the female cone actually, if you have a female and it forms seeds, I had one seed actually germinate. Not on purpose, I just fell off the tree, I found it and it was growing. I was like, cool, a seed. Some more sagos. Or cycads, the correct name, cycads. Hold that. Chunk off my screen. I had a plan when I was last there, and I went and took pictures of as many as I could find. I took a picture of the sign, then I took a picture of the sago, and I've got them on a YouTube video on my YouTube site. You know, how exciting, but I did find 22 of the 28 species, and I was running because it was getting dark. Zamia, the cardboard palm, doesn't get those white spots on it. This one was planted from seed about 1982, given to me when I was living in South Africa, and I nursed it up. When I moved back to America, I transplanted about 5 of these around my mother-in-law's house, beach house. This is the only survivor, and it's getting bigger. This was 2011, and you know, you think about that, 1982 to 2011, that's 30 years. It doesn't grow very fast, does it? This is a Mexican sago. These are the ones right outside. Oh no, we're in a different building. Right outside the AHS building. They're right on the ground there. Now they're quite big now. They actually trim them with a hedge trimmer because they're getting big and overgrowing the sidewalk. This is the white spot that the king and queen sagos get in Florida. That was introduced in 1992 into the port of Miami into some imported sagos from Asia. It's the Asian whitefly. They were hiding in the roots unknown to all the people at those time. They've basically gone and infected most of the king and queen sago palms of the southeast United States. This is an actual fly. It buries its head in and starts drinking the sap of the tree, and that's the back part of the thing sticking out. Not only does it suck the juices out of the leaf, it also makes them quite unsightly. Right now, there's a couple of things that are very expensive to use. Bayer has a tree and shrub tonic that you can put on the bottom and pour around the bottom, and that's supposed to work. And one of the other things I found works pretty good is coffee grinds. I think the reason being it makes the soil a little bit acid, and so these don't like the more acid tasting juices that are in the plant. Well, I don't know. It's also cheaper. The ginkgo tree, once again I got another picture of a dinosaur eating a ginkgo somewhere. They always draw the ginkgos there. This is the maidenhair fern. The big thing about the ginkgos, you need to read about that. There's a really cool movie as well. Not enough time to show on YouTube because of the shortness. There's about 8 of these things behind Muppets 3D at the Hollywood Studios. They've been put against a wall, so they don't really have the best place to grow. But they're still alive and kicking after all those years. What, since 1989? That's what they look like. The males have this male sporophyte on it, and the females get a cone-ish type of thing with a covering. Unfortunately, the female coverings, when the female cones fall off on the ground, they smell like vomit. So we're trying to get one planted outside the AHS building, but they have to try to find a male. Obviously, you don't want somebody to have to go out there and clean up stinky old cones. Netophyta is a plant division with 3 genera, about 80 species. They don't know when it evolved, 140 to 250 million years ago. Although there's no true flowers or fruits in this thing, they are netophytes. They are gymnosperms. 3 living genera, Edephora, Netum, and Velvitia. 65 species of Edephora, 30 or more Netums, and only 1 Velvitia. Here's the Netums. I've never seen any of them. Mormon tea, which is the Netophytes. These guys are the Adephra. Is the name means too long to measure its age. The Mormon tea is so called because it's been used as a beverage for both medicinal and recreational purposes. There's what they look like when they're growing. And the Velvetia, my favorite. They grow in Namibia and Angola within 60 kilometers of the ocean. Any further than that, they can't grow. It's almost like having a barrier or a wall or something, I'm allowed to say wall, along to stop them from going any further. And the reason is that because the Atlantic Ocean's cool and there's a desert, you get a lot of fog in the morning that forms and pushes about, you guessed it, 60 kilometers inland. And the fog condenses on these leaves. This area, if they're lucky, they get 1, maybe 2 inches of rain a year. Okay? That is not a lot. Orlando averages about 50 inches a year. So 2 inches of rain a year is not really much to give a plant growing. Yet they grow big. They do pretty well. The largest recorded specimen is in the Messina Mountains, 1.8 meters high. Another is 1.2 meters tall, 8 meters wide. Carbon dating says that some of them are 500 to 600 years old, although the largest specimens are thought to be 200 years old. Their lifespan is anywhere between 400 to 1500. Growth occurs annually during the summer months. I'm thinking that's when most of the fog rolls in. These are some that were in Kirschenbosch in the hothouse area that are growing. Note, 2 leaves. These plants only get 2 leaves in their whole life. The leaves grow, and as they continue to grow, the wind causes them to strap out, so you have what looks like a bunch of leaves, but they all came from their original 2, and they don't grow anymore. There they are, in the hothouse. And even though they grow under harsh conditions in the desert, they say that you can grow them on your windowsill in your kitchen if you want. The only thing wrong with growing them, especially in places like Florida, is the humidity is too high. They probably, because they live in such a dry area in the desert, they probably have no genes to protect them from the funguses that would get with high humidity. A lot of plants are like that live in dry areas. Here's what it looks like on the top. The dew forms, condenses on the leaves, and the water rolls right back down into the center, down into the roots. It's got CAM photosynthesis. That's my friend from Michigan. He went and saw a bunch of them when he was driving down Namibia in 1983. Here's some male cones on the end of a pine. And there's the female cones. The female cones occur laterally off the branch, and the male cones are terminal. They occur at the tip of the branch. So now when you see the cones, you'll know which ones are which. Sequoia. Sequoia trees once covered vast areas of the earth, dating back 20 million years. They exist now only in small bands. The mild climate they have, plenty of moisture from fog and mist and rain, make their survival possible. They can get over 350 feet tall. All the specimens about 3,200 years old. The largest tree and oldest living thing on the planet is General Sherman. There is General Sherman. It's found somewhere. You got Los Angeles and San Francisco, and you go inland like on an angle, and somewhere in the mountains you can Google Earth, get General Sherman, and do street view, and it drives you right up, and you can see all the cool trees around there. These are giant trees. This thing is so big that, here it is here, it measures 36 feet in diameter. That's straight across. That's not circumference, that's diameter, right across. It's 275 feet high, which is about halfway to 3/4 of the way up the SunTrust building downtown Orlando. It weighs 2.7 million pounds, contains 52,000 cubic feet of wood. One branch measures 7 feet in diameter. A 15-story building would fit under the first branch of this thing. It's estimated between 2,300 and 2,700 years old. The lowest limb of the tree visible in that picture is taller than any tree east of the Mississippi River. There's a tree. Where do you think that is? I heard you. Lake Eola. This is a cypress tree. These are called cypress knees. these bumps at the bottom of the cypress trees in the water take oxygen down to the roots, which are underwater where there's no oxygen. Bald cypress, cypress in a pond. This is a cypress dome. It's a unique feature of Central and heading down South Florida to Fort Pierce area. Along the beach line, you can see some. Along the turnpike, if you're not driving, look off into the right and left and you'll see them out there. It's not man-made. There's no hotels hiding in the middle. It's just because the cypress trees, where there's a sediment area with liquid, the trees grow taller and then they dome out away from the tallness. You have different types of trees there. You have, oh, where's my clicker here? Sorry. You have bald cypress and pond cypress that are there, taking advantage of the, probably sinkhole that made the pond that's there. Angios dominated the modern landscape, represented by 250,000 species, supply nearly all our food and much of our fiber and textiles. Success largely due to refinements in vascular tissue that make water transport much more efficient and the evolution of the flower. No doubt about that. Unfortunately, we got to go to part 3.